Welcome to another episode of the Academy for Adventurers podcast. I'm your host, Mauro Schiavo. Here on this podcast, we talk about personal and professional adventures, the battles that we go through, the growth that we experience, and the beauty along the way. Today, we have a return guest, Stefano Manino. Welcome back, bud. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Happy to be here. How are you doing, Moto?
I'm good, man. It's always a joy for me to have return guests. That means that we did something right the first time. So I'm happy to have you back, bud.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to be back. So much to talk about today.
Yeah.
Um,
Your episode was very popular and we got a lot of comments, a lot on the shorts. And so I can't wait to continue the conversation where we left off and also talk about some new topics.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
So today I think we're mainly going to focus on young adults, I believe,
yes.
and we have some very good talking points. So where do we want to start? Where do we want to start on that?
So I would want to start off by saying that I myself I'm a young adult, right? The I guess direct definition of what that word means. I'm 19 years old, and I'm sort of in that phase between full on adulthood and also still being a kid. Uh,
Mm,
as much as I don't like to say it, um,
mm,
there are so many struggles that come with that, with being a young adult, that I I want to talk about because it's important for
mm,
other young adults to be able to place what's going on in their life in a relatable way, and then also for some of maybe the older viewers watching that are just full on adults at this point. They can sort of have a little bit of a look into to what it is to be a young adult now, because it's very different than it was 20 years ago. um
and maybe even for
I've
parents that have young
Yeah,
adults themselves. Yeah.
absolutely. um I've noticed within the many people that I know, Um, I've always gotten along much better with people who are older than me. Most of my friends are older than me. That's sort of been my circle for the majority of my life.
Mm,
But that doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, I am still the age that I am, in spite of the older people that I hang out with, or maybe the way that I carry myself.
yeah.
I'm still part of that world. Um, I've noticed so many things over the years change and sort of
Mm,
build up to what the definition of young adult means now, because it's distinctive from the definition that older people have, um typically. Like with my parents, a lot of things that are the norm now, back then were not. um Things
an
have to
example.
be, yeah. So like, for instance, a lot of safety issues, right? When my parents were younger, they didn't really have to worry about driving out late and something really unfortunate happening to them. But now it's like there's this fear that that can happen to me, or it can happen to any other young person, because we are somehow more naive than they were, and there's more dangers in society. And while to a degree I think that is true, there's a lot of fear that comes from not understanding.
Mm,
And I'm sure that in their case, right, when they were younger, their parents felt the same way. It's like, oh, things aren't the way they used to be. And that's always going to be the case, because life is an ever changing cycle, and trends change. Um, the problems that we have, they change. And right now, um, I see people my age very confused and very lost and very frustrated. And this is something that's always been the case. That's where the term young and restless comes from.
Mm.
That's always been an existing thing, but the reasoning for that changes. So being young and restless, um, for me, I have my own personal battles and situations that I have to deal with as a young person just because of the way that I am. But I think there are certain things that a broad majority of young people go through, especially those that are aware. Because one thing is being unaware, which I know many people who are, and it's just life to them. They don't even see it as a struggle because they're so in it. Um, for me, a big part of that has been social media. Like, I see a lot of people my age so consumed by what's on their phone and what's on Instagram and what's on TikTok and what's on all of these platforms that they don't even realize that it's causing a lot of the issues that they have. Myself and a lot of other young people that I know, we have the awareness, but we still are part of that. Um, and I say it's an issue because although, and I've mentioned this before, like
Yeah.
we cannot survive without the phone in today's world. It it's very difficult to do that unless you're like Amish and you're living in like a farm in Utah and you don't need any Wi-Fi or anything like that. But in order for communication and for things like that, it's necessary. Um, but it sucks that we need that because I'm constantly like opening my Instagram or opening my TikTok and seeing things that I just don't want to see.
Mm.
And there's this level of insecurity that's constantly being fueled by the insecurity of others.
Mm. Tell me more about that.
So there's always been the stigma of, men need to be, super muscular and buff and all of these things. But then there's also such a thing as toxic masculinity. And then there's, the girls that they need to be super slim and they need to, have like a picture perfect appearance and all of these things. And what does that lead to? That leads to a lot of young men um, striving to basically make a monster out of themselves, um, not for the sake of being healthy, but it's like, oh, this guy is so strong, like nobody's gonna hurt him. And then as a young man, you fall into that mentality, and then you realize that that's not going to save you.
Mm.
And then for the young women, um, I think the insecurity is different, but it's insecurity nonetheless. It's like, how can I have this appeal towards people? I want to be liked. I want to be seen, and it destroys you.
Yeah.
Yet it's like spoon fed to young people, and it's not talked about nearly as much as it should be. Because like I said, Instagram and all of these platforms, they can be used as a great tool. Like like personally, like on my Instagram, I have a lot of Catholic stuff, a lot of news and information that is very useful for me, a lot of music stuff. But then there's also those things that'll come up and they make you feel like you need to become something that either you are not or something that you don't need to actually become because they're being put out there for the wrong reasons. And ultimately, that leads a lot of young people into this despair of, I'm not good enough.
Constant comparison to the perfect person that they see. I heard this said very long ago, and this impacted me a lot in my 20s because I I became of age when Facebook and Instagram were really getting into full swing, right? So I'm 33 now. I was born in 1993, and I remember when I was 15, it was 2008, and that was when everyone really started to be on their phones all the time. So my childhood up until about 13, 14 years old, we it wasn't widespread yet, so we still spent a lot of time going outside. Even though many of us played video games, I certainly played my fair share, but it was still very common to go outside, go to parks. It was still very common to do things and have conversations. I remember my 13th birthday party. I had all my friends come over, and we spent a few hours at home in the afternoon just playing games and going outside. And then we went to a local mall here in South Florida called the Sawgrass Mall. And yeah, we just walked around the mall, and we went to GameStop and we had dinner. And that was very common back then. And no one was on their phone. Nobody. Like, no one was on their cell phone. That didn't start happening until I was like 15, 16 years old, where it was like everyone was just on their phone all the time. Like, I remember high school, that was when it all started. That was a huge shift. Now, what I remember noticing in my 20s, when I was more mature and kind of had gone through puberty and the early getting through the early phases of young adulthood, as we're talking about today, I came across a lot of very helpful advice. And this is one of the things that I think I want to share today, is that we don't realize this, but 99 times out of 100, what people are sharing on social media is they're only sharing all the good stuff that happens, right? They're sharing their vacation photos, they're sharing their workouts, they're sharing whatever it is in their life that's going well. Nobody shares the dark stuff. Nobody does. And so what happens? We compare how we feel internally to what people are showing externally. That is a huge poison. And I think that's where a lot of the angst comes from, that young and restless attitude that you were talking about. A lot of young people now feel restless because they're comparing their anxieties, their fears, their worries to the supposed perfect life of somebody else. But what's funny is that the people that are really authentic, the ones that I follow on social media, maybe the ones that I follow for business advice or mental health advice, they very rightly point out, no, 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 don't get it twisted. Even though those people are only showing the best and the money and the car and the beach, and they have, don't worry, they have their own troubles and anxieties too. But we forget that because we're comparing how we feel on the inside to what they're showing on the outside.
And it makes a lot of people feel very alone, I think, too, because you end up seeing this repetition of what is just a projection of the goodness in their life. And that leads to, oh, well, I don't have that car, or I don't have a car at all, or
I don't have
look
that
at
business.
this.
I don't get to go
Yeah.
on that trip.
Something that's never really made sense to me, and I see so many people that I went to high school with doing this, literally just taking pictures of stacks of money that they have. And it's like, it's very weird. Like it's very weird. And I kind of laugh when when I see those posts, and I see them more frequently than you would expect. But it's just they take pictures of the stacks of money that they have. And what purpose does that accomplish? Like, one, and I could be wrong to assume this, you probably didn't get all of that money at 17 years old in a just way. And
Just wait.
just 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 an assumption, I could totally be wrong.
Yeah.
And then there's why. Like, you can be proud of yourself, and that's excellent that you have all of this money, but what is the need to put that out there and and just be very direct about, like, look at what I did that you probably can't do, or look at what I have that you don't have. um there's a certain point to which it's okay to share things like, look what I did, I am proud of this, like, that can maybe inspire someone. But I think if there's no real purpose in sharing something like that, it shouldn't be done. Just for the sake of other people. Um, but I don't think a lot of people have that sort of metacognition at um too
At the
early of
beginning.
an age. So it's just
Totally.
like, you know what? This looks cool. I'm gonna put this on Instagram,
Yeah.
and not actually thinking about how that might affect the people looking at it. Because that's what it does. It's called social media for a reason. There's a
Yeah.
social aspect to that. Um, and it's a projection of the good things, or the things that might seem good, when in reality, like, you're posting a picture of your Lamborghini, and everybody's like, "Oh wow, he's got a Lamborghini. How'd he get that?" And it's like a random Lamborghini in a Publix parking lot that he's taking a picture with. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
things like that can happen. And um it it serves less as motivation to do that, and more of like, why don't I have that?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of envy and jealousy and spite that's become sort of repetitive for people my age to fall into. um and insecurity above anything. There are so many standards that exist now that didn't exist before. Like, there was always supermodels, but you weren't seeing every single person that you knew posting edited pictures of themselves on social media to make it look like they don't have, you know, their pimples are, scrubbed off, their stretch marks are scrubbed off, and then they put three different filters to make themselves look perfect. And what that does is, the person on the other side of the screen looking at that, the other young person, it's like, "Oh, well, I don't look like that." And then it's just a constant cycle. It's a constant cycle. The person posting and the person receiving. And then it goes back and forth. And now I see it so often where young people are so hungry to feel like they're good enough.
Mm.
And they're hungry for the validation, but not for the actual self-fulfillment.
A lot of the young people that I work with, coach and mentor, I very often, especially if I notice that they have a tendency to be anxious or depressed or do what you're talking about, that comparison, quite frequently I tell them to either heavily reduce or just eliminate social media, because it's just not, it's no longer a net good. And so oftentimes I think the only solution is to just not play that game. And one of the trends that I've been noticing is exactly that. A lot of people just, they're not on it anymore. Like I've had many people that I know just say, hey, look, I'm closing this down. Here's my phone number. I lost count of how many times I saw that. And it's because they realize that it's just not worth it anymore, you know? And I am, I'm someone that I post a lot. I mean, one of our team members does the majority of the posting for the company, but I don't consume a whole lot. I'm very strategic with who I follow and what I follow because at the end of the day, the eyes are the window to the soul, and what I see is going to impact what I do and how I feel. And so I believe one of the things that we can take away from what you're talking about is the fact that you may either need to heavily reduce the consumption or change who you see. And I know that can be hard sometimes because we already feel isolated enough as it is. But I also think this is the reason why I make such a big push for doing things in person and joining communities, because I think social media is low hanging fruit. And I certainly think there are a lot of good uses for it. However, if you're finding yourself more and more in this place that you're describing, then you may just need to make some big changes. And you may want to shift towards getting your social needs and your communal needs from either maybe more private places, like maybe joining some Discord channels or maybe joining some WhatsApp groups or just doing things in person. Like join groups that you care about. Like whatever interests you have, why don't you try to find a way to do that in a way that's not on the bigger sources of social media? Like, what do you think about that as a solution to some of these problems that a lot of young adults are having?
There's such a strong attachment to the phone that even going out and doing things that you don't really need the phone for, like hanging out with your friends, and you'll see it very often now, and older generations will point out their frustration with this. But I even see like my parents, we go out to eat at a restaurant, and instead of conversation, like they're on Facebook. And something that I actually did the other day, I wanted to challenge myself a little bit.
Mm,
So I took myself on a date and I went to a coffee shop and I ordered a coffee and I ordered some pastries and I sat down outside and I put my phone aside. I didn't put my headphones in, which I carry my headphones in my pocket everywhere I go. I'm always listening to music. And I told myself, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to enjoy this coffee. I'm going to enjoy these pastries. I'm just going to watch the street and I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to listen to music. I'm just going to be present. And it felt really good
mm,
not looking at a screen and just being in the moment. Because the reality of the phone is that when you're looking at it, it's like you're on 5,000 planets at the same time because you can jump and look into somebody else's life and then into somebody else's and then you can do that endlessly. Every time you're scrolling, you're just getting glimpses of realities that are not your own and that are not present. So when you separate yourself from that and you just sit and enjoy what's actually happening in front of you, even the simplicity of sitting by yourself at a coffee shop and just not looking at your phone or listening to music, it helps you center yourself because like we've become so attached to the phone that everything without the phone just becomes boring. And once I started noticing that in my own life, I realized, okay, this is a problem because this is not reality. And it's like a drug. Like you're trying to numb the state that you're in and you're not even conscious of it.
One of the big leadership people that I follow a lot, I really love his work. His name is Simon Sinek, and he is the author of that famous book, Start With Why. And in several interviews, he had a brilliant, brilliant example that he would talk about. You know, you wouldn't give your 14-year-old access to your liquor cabinet, right? You wouldn't do that. No responsible parent would. But when you give them a cell phone, you've basically done the equivalent because you've given them access to an endless dopamine cabinet that they're going to get addicted to. And it's very hard to get out of that cabinet once you've been in it for a while because we we were not created to be constantly stimulated. There's a reason why there's such a thing as events, special events, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, you know? Those are things that they happen on a cyclical basis. But we can't live as if it was our birthday every day. Because guess what? It's no longer special. But what we're doing when we're constantly stimulated on our cell phone is we're always getting hit after hit after hit after hit. Dopamine here, dopamine there. And then what happens? Our threshold for enjoyment gets higher and higher and higher. And then all of a sudden, nothing is enjoyable anymore. And that is, and the only cure to that is to start to wean yourself off of it and just not use it. There's no other cure to that. And it's not what everyone wants, a magic pill. It's not what people want to hear, but it's the reality. You can only make something fun and special if you're not doing it all the time. That's why vacations are nice because you do them a few times a year if you're lucky, right? If you have the means and you work, and that's the reason why you take breaks. But what I'm noticing, especially with a lot of young men, is if you're playing video games for 9, 10 hours a day, not only are you going to get bored of playing video games, nothing else is stimulating to you anymore. Nothing else is fun. You're going to be bored and anxious all the time. And the more that you play and the more that you watch and the more that you do, it's like if you're drunk and you drink another beer, it's going to make you feel good for 5 minutes, but guess what? That hangover is going to come back later and it's going to be worse. It's the same concept. And so I'm finding more and more as time goes on that is more and more true. The only way to cure yourself from the addiction to the phone is to just reduce your use of it and do other things in the real world. That's what I'm seeing, bud. And that's what I'm noticing is starting to inject more life and more enjoyment is just the reduction and sometimes heavy elimination of it. As hard
And
as it
then
may be.
no, absolutely. Like it's very difficult to break free from that. And I've definitely lowered my usage from what it used to be, especially during lockdown. Lockdown was terrible
It was
because there was
hard.
not a
It
yeah,
was
that
hard.
was like
Yeah.
I was how old was I? I was about 14 And I remember I would spend, no joke, about 6 to 8 hours a day on TikTok. And then one day I realized that it wasn't feeding me
Mm.
spiritually, mentally. It was actually taking away from what I should have been doing with that time. Like, and then you say, okay, well, what could you possibly do in that window of time when you can't even go outside? I was 14. I could have been, you know, building disciplines for exercise, or I could have been praying, or I could have been doing a variety of other things rather than scrolling on my phone for 8 hours. Then I realized what was happening because I felt myself very frustrated. Like, I was very depressed because my dopamine receptors had been shot,
Yeah.
and I completely got rid of the app. I have it now, and I don't use it nearly as much as I used to, but I felt a lot better afterwards when I did that because I wasn't flooding my mind with things that didn't need to be put in there. Like, I don't think this is talked about enough either, but there's so much nonsense online
Yeah.
that's just not necessary. Like, if people have been living for thousands of years without TikTok and Instagram and a digital universe, we are capable of that. It's not that we're not capable, it's that we've become dependent.
Yeah. This is why it's important to have to begin a a structured practice in your life of building discipline across multiple different areas, because it's very difficult for you to transition out of something if you don't have something to start to replace it with. And this is why I like to always offer alternatives that are screen free. You know, take a music class, buy a book, buy a puzzle. You can go to stores like, you can go to the dollar store, you can go to Five Below. You can buy things that you can do with your hands that are 20 times more fun, but they're actually going to stimulate portions of your brain. And so I often will tell people as an activity, I love stores like Barnes and Noble. I love stores like Five Below, where you can just walk in and say, you know what? I'm going to give myself a $10 budget. What am I going to buy? Something I can do with my hands, you know? And that is oftentimes, and I've met people that they started painting. It was a kava bar that I like to go to here recently, and they started doing art classes on Friday nights. There was someone there that had never painted before, and all of a sudden now he's painting like every week. And it's because he just gave it a shot. You know, he bought a $3 canvas, $5 art supplies, less than $10. And now he's got a brand new hobby that is stimulating his brain. It's making him more creative, and he loves it now. And he just does it all the time. And he's like, I couldn't believe it. You know, I went from never painting a single canvas to now I'm painting 2 or 3 a week. And what a great use of free time. You're doing something that is engaging, it's fun, you're actually making something. Yeah. And there's plenty of different things you can do in that space and that type of, but just understanding that, and I think this is important to say, there's nothing wrong with you. Everyone gets addicted to this stuff. Everyone does. But you're the only one that can break free out of it. And if you just start to build little habits, building discipline, doing other things in just as little as 3 or 4 days, like you'll feel a lot better. You know? Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's funny because like so much of the time that ends up getting spent literally doing nothing, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. You'll get maybe one or two good things out of the 100 videos that you watch. But it doesn't just apply to the phone. Like, what is productivity?
Output. Yeah.
Output. It's
Out.
output. You're not just constantly trying to receive something, because if that's how it starts with the phone, that you're just trying to receive and receive and receive and receive, your desire to create goes down.
Yeah, because you lose
So
all motivation to do things.
right,
I
it causes so many psychological problems that you don't even realize, because a lot of it is subconscious. Like you're trying to feed yourself, but it's actually doing the opposite. It's taking away from you. It's taking away your motivation. It's taking away your desire, excuse me, your desire to create. Um this comes up very often in my life where um I'll be having a conversation with people my age, and then they'll ask me if I play a specific video game. I've never played video games. There's only one video game that I ever play, and it's very rare occasion that I will play it. But it's like, "Oh, you know this game, or you know this character, or whatever." And I'm like, I don't play games." And they're like, I hear it so often, they go, "What's wrong with you?" Like, "What do you mean? Like you're 19? You're you're a dude, you don't play video games?" I'm like, "No, I don't really." And they're like, "What do you do with that time?" "I play music."
Mm.
And I wish that I could actually do that more. But when you're on the phone and you're doing things like scrolling, that actually takes away some of the time that you could be using to create something. Um, like music. I've cut a lot of that out of my life, and it's been very fruitful not having a dependency on Instagram and TikTok and all of these things, because I've learned to be more present, and my motivation has increased so much. Which leads me into another thing that I wanted to talk about, that is sort of linked to this. Um the insecurities and the comparison and all of these things that young people are struggling with have something to do as well with what I call the young rush,
Mm. What
which
is
is
the
this:
young rush?
there is a desire for ambition that is actually not ambition, but lack of patience.
Mm.
And I only know this
Mhm.
because I was thinking this way and I was living this way until I realized this is not me being ambitious. This is me not knowing how to appreciate what I have in front of me.
Mm.
Because initially, what you'd think is a goal, I want to make a lot of money. Let's say that. I want to make a lot of money. Instead of, oh, like I have this ambition to become a doctor, it turns into, what is the fastest way I can make $1,000 right now? And people will say the ends justify the means, but especially for us, that's not true because we're Catholic. Um, the ends don't justify the means, especially not in this particular case, because your driving force is just, I want something and I can't wait for it. So I'm going to figure out however it is that I can get this thing that I want, regardless of the cost. And I want to do it the easiest way possible. And that's dangerous because there's less and less and less young people that are aspiring to do real things. They just want to get married, or they want to get money, or they want to get whatever it is that they want at whatever cost, without it actually being a good ambition or a goal. It's just, I want this now. And I don't like that I am not getting it right now. And I was struggling with this because I had gotten out of high school. I had turned 18, graduated, and I felt so concerned about what was going to come next. I don't have a job. I don't have any money. I'm starting college. I'm not driving. Like, what do I do? What do I do? And it threw me into this panic of like, okay, I need to get
Mm,
money as soon as possible
mm.
without even thinking about how I was going to do it. Or I need to start driving, but I wasn't making the efforts to actually learn. And then as time has progressed, I realized you have to work with what you have in front of you. And you're trying to see what's 10 miles away, but you can't. You can only see what's in front of you. What can you do with what is on your plate right now?
That
It's
reminds
good
me
to,
of a quote from St. Francis because it's a beautiful quote that's been often attributed to him, where he says, start with what's necessary, then what's possible, and then all of a sudden you'll do the impossible.
yes, yes. Um, and that's really become a forgotten concept.
There's a lot
I,
of positives to the young rush, and I want to highlight those because there's nothing there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to move up. I believe that there's a reason why biologically it's there, because your body realizes, hey, it's time for me to start doing something. I'm not a kid anymore. I think the societal and environmental pressures are what will twist an otherwise healthy desire into something bad, because at 18, 19, you should be moving, right? Like, you should be doing something. Like, you should start to develop a skill, some sort of trajectory for your life. There's a reason why you feel that. But I think that the phone and just having instant access to everything turns an otherwise necessary and important desire into something that it never should have been.
it's a perversion of what it should have been initially.
Yeah.
Like the ambition is not the bad part.
No, it's
That's the good part. But
right.
it's the rush, that the running into the wall because you need something and you need it now, without actually taking the steps necessary to do it.
Yeah. One of the
That's what
most
I was struggling with.
the most like beautiful things that I was proud of myself when I was a teenager was, I wanted a PlayStation 3. It came out in 2006 and it was very expensive. It was like $600, and it's funny because video game consoles haven't really gone up that much in price, but games have. But that's a subject for another day. But I remember that in order to help money, because I asked for Christmas and my parents are like, it's too much. Like, we can't give you that as a Christmas. Even if we collect money, it's too much. So I started washing cars to make money for the PlayStation 3. And to this day, that is one of the one of the things I'm most proud of as a kid that I did. I actually helped pay for my gift, you know? And that is a very important lesson that I learned, that when you work for something and you genuinely put time and effort into receiving something, it makes the reward that much sweeter. I think that's really important for young people to learn, to actually put a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears into something. If you instantly get something all the time, it's no longer fun. You no longer even enjoy it.
But that's where I want to tie the phone back in. It's like
Mhm.
no effort, you're receiving, you're
Zero
receiving, you're
effort.
receiving.
Zero effort.
Zero effort,
All
and
input.
you're just
Yeah. No
being
out.
fed all of this stuff. And then now, although that's happening on a digital level, it starts to work its way into your actual life. Like, I'm going to do nothing and I'm going to get all of this. And it doesn't work that way. Like, you have
It's
to
a
work
cheap
for things.
well, it's a cheap facsimile. It's a facade. It's like the phone is like fast food. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's good, right? Porn is the same way. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's good. So why go through all the trouble of building an intimate relationship where you actually have to do stuff if you can just watch porn? Why go through all the trouble of starting a new hobby if you can just find entertainment for free on your phone? And that is, it's, we were biologically, there's a reason why we get addicted to things. It's because we were built for survival. And if we can find an easy way out, we'll take it. But there's a lot of unintended consequences that come from taking that approach. Because if you never do anything hard and you only get things for free and only do easy stuff, you're in for a rude awakening later on. Because life doesn't work like that.
No,
Because
no, of
life is
course.
hard. Life is hard. Marriage is hard. Business is hard. Work is hard. Your health is hard. If you take always the easy way out, yeah, you're gonna be hit with a very big surprise, and it's gonna happen sooner than you expect.
I remember it was a very strange transition for me into the stage of life that I am in now because I was so used to high school and you always have somebody to run to when you need something or when you want something. But outside of that world, it's like the real world. You kind of have to fend for yourself in many ways. You have to get yourself a job. Nobody can do that for you. Nobody's just going to assign you a random task. And it's like, "Oh, you're out of high school now. Here's a job." I got very fortunate and I knew someone that was able to help me get a job. Um but I had to put in the work. I had to show that I was capable. And it also really affects your people skills too.
Mm,
I I am also again very fortunate that I have parents that work in hospitality and I've grown up around older people. So I'm very good at socializing. I'm very good at having conversations and just being present. Um, but when you're sucked into something completely, like the phone or video games or anything like that, and it's time to step out into the real world, you're in for a rude awakening because you actually have to talk to people and you have to know how to approach situations with patience and grace that you don't just wake up with. I work in a restaurant, and when we hire new people, typically young people, they have a tendency to be very quiet. And I see the way that they attend customers and there's, I want to say, a lack of sociability simply because they've gotten used to living in a world that does not require that. And then when you step out into something that does require that, you're like, "Oh, shoot, I don't know what to do." And you see that very often now. Like, it's hard for young people to communicate with older people because they've been sucked into a world for a very long time that doesn't require that of them. And then when it is required, there's like this awkward gap.
A few weeks ago, my wife went to Panda Express, and the cashier, zero social skills. And my wife had to ask him something 3 times, and he couldn't even maintain eye contact. And part of me really feels for him because I know that he was very young, a little bit, probably around your age, if not a little bit younger. And so, I mean, the thing, however, is that even though it is hard and part of me feels for him, if he doesn't start the necessary process of building that social skill of, first of all, you're at a cash register and you need to be able to function, you need to be able to, you know, give soy sauce and, you know, tell people what the total amount of their bill is and be able to give them napkins and whatever. But he was like really struggling with that, you know. And it makes me wonder, yeah, like, you, what do you do? You know? But I know what you do. You start to build out of it, you know? And you have to accept that. And I the only way to step above that is to start. And even if it's something as little as, man, like the next customer that comes in line, like, let me look at them for 2 seconds. That's all I can handle. Fine. You'll start with selling a micro goal and just build off of that.
It's
Just
just
build a micro
there's so
goal.
little awareness. There's so little awareness of like w- what they should be doing. Because like I see it with some of the people that I work with where it's just like I I don't really see what I'm doing wrong. And it's like you just rolled your eyes at a customer,
Yeah.
and believe me, I want to do that. I have a desire to do that very often, but I don't because job is on the line. And you're actually more likely to get positive attention if you give positive. There used to be more instruction on these sorts of things, like, back in the day there was home economics classes in high schools where you would have to learn how to take
Oh,
care of an egg and
yeah.
just do things that people should be able to do. And now that isn't accessible anymore. So you have a lot of young people that are very lost, and they're just kind of floating through life, not knowing at all where to start and not having any help, any proper help. Um there are obviously resources like YouTube and things of that nature, but if you don't know that there's a problem, how can you fix the problem?
Yeah.
There's a level of lack of awareness that needs to be acknowledged by older people.
Yeah.
But I think even for like the boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their their awareness has gone down as well because of the phone too. You know, it's ironic um, because I see a lot of common patterns between the much older generations and then the like my generation. And then there's like millennials that like yourself that I think fit into a completely different box. But there's a lot of similarities um that aren't being pointed out. Like consumption and um I want the easy way out now that this exists. The lack of discipline. Um so many of these repetitive issues, but there are solutions.
I would encourage people, especially if you're in the US. I have been surprised often by going to your local community, your local city, your local county. A lot of times, I've been surprised to see the programs that are offered, oftentimes for little cost or even free. There have been many programs that I have taken for a variety of different things. Even local libraries offer a lot of very good classes and they're low cost. The problem is that people don't look, and if you're not looking, it's going to be very difficult for you to find. But I would encourage you, like, go to your local library, go to your local county website, do a simple Google search, or even ask chat to help you. Like, look, like, can you help me find the low cost program that's in person here in my city for how to build social skills, how to become a public speaker, how to cook, how to do simple tasks. Like, you'll be surprised. Like, a lot of these programs, they do exist and they are available, but you have to look for them. But I will guarantee you that there is something available to you. Groupon oftentimes will offer like great deals. Private businesses do classes. Companies like ours, the Academy for Adventurers, that we're trying to do local events and we're going to the city, we're going to the county, we're making these contracts with these schools and these community centers. Like, take a look at what you have. You may be surprised and you may find something, but you have to look. I found a lot of support in my lower 20s, my early 20s, by just taking a lot of programs that were low cost or oftentimes subsidized by the local government. But you have to look. You have to
Hmm.
look.
I feel like there needs to be more of a push from the people that see what's going on
I
because
agree.
there's more critiquing being done, like, oh, look at this kid who's on his phone, or
All the time.
there's more like, okay, you can acknowledge something's not going the way it should be, but
But
are
what's the
you
solution?
pushing?
Right.
Are you saying, hey, like, and positive reinforcement as well? Like, I don't see a lot of that. It's
Yeah.
just it's easier to let them do what they want, but I'm gonna complain about it. Where's the logic in that? And I see that so often. I
I agree with
like
you all the way. Yeah.
a lot
I
of complaining about this could be going better, this kid is lazy or whatever. And it's like, you're supposed to be the wiser generation, yes? Like, you can judge and you can complain and you can do all of these things, but you can't help. Like, if the roles were reversed, would you not want somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you know, let's go try this," and that's great. Like, there needs to be more positive reinforcement for the good things, and people need to stop using the excuse that, oh, well, they're happy and they're comfortable, to many things in life, but especially in this case, I see a lot of young parents, even Gen Z parents, my generation, that they just leave their child with an iPad and that's it. The iPad is now the parent.
Yeah.
And the child from being a baby is being fed with nonsense and YouTube and all of these things. And the parent is not actually encouraging and reinforcing better alternatives to that. Like, I can't tell you the number of times that I've been to a party or I've gone to church or I've gone to a restaurant and I see young kids on a laptop or a tablet or an iPhone watching these YouTube videos or even at my job, and I'll be passing by and I hear some of the things that they're watching and I'm like, this is like a 4-year-old child. Like, whatever they're listening to, they should not be listening to. And no, it's just it keeps them under control. And
Tier 3 should have how this went, because I think that we were able to point out a lot of the issues constructively, but also I think we offered a good amount of solutions too. And I think this is a conversation definitely I want to continue having, because I think that there's many places where we could dive into specifically.
absolutely.
Yeah. And lastly, before we close out, is there one last thing you want to tell our audience as we close this out?
I think to keep it short and sweet, be present.
Be present.
Whether you are a teenager or a young adult, um, or you're a little past young adult, be present wherever you are in life and try to make the most out of what you have in front of you. That is not your phone, that is not someone else's reality, but your own. Be present in your own life. And by default, you will be present in the lives of others in the right way. So I think that's what I'd like to close with. Be present.
Amen to that. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, Stefano. Everyone,
Thank you
do
for
this.
having me.
Yeah, come on. We'll have you back again. We got to continue this conversation. Do all this stuff, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you thought and what you'd like to hear more from next time. All right? So remember, everyone, you are the hero of your own story. So start acting. We'll see you next time, everyone. Take care. Bye.